Councillor Fran Lister.
Yeah, pawb. Thank you, Jeanette, for bringing the report. It came last year and I was very impressed with it last year. I felt it was very intuitive as an educator. And I think last year we did actually mention, well, I mentioned staff training at the time, and now I can see that it's actually going to have to be the responsibility of the schools to embed that into their CPD programme through all their staff training. And it sounds like you've starting to get that buy-in from the head teachers. So I think that's a really positive step. When I looked at the charter and read the aims, I thought, gosh, that's just like reading a personal specification for a job description to become a teacher. To build trusting relationships, to nurture children, to provide inspiring learning environments, to feel proud and have high expectations of yourself, which then made me think, should the charter then be used perhaps as a tool for good recruitment? So yeah, it was just a suggestion really to see whether it could be used to be recruiting members of staff. Councillor Mackie raised about school readiness, which is obviously a big theme, and actually I sit on social and health as well. And the more I delve into this, the more I realise that investment in early years is going to have a huge long-term impact to education later on. So just with that in mind, with your steering group, is there any early year setting representatives on your steering group for the belonging strategy? And is that a possibility, particularly when we're talking about engaging with parents and families? And I guess the last bit was fairly in line with Councillor Healy's suggestions. I really, really like this. I think, like I say, it's very intuitive to good education. What I'm worried about is head teachers saying, I don't think any of the head teachers would dispute this. Anyone would say, no, I don't want to achieve that in my school. I think the big question is, how are we going to do it under the constraints that we are under at the moment? And it is so pressured. I'm a governor at a school. I've had meetings with chairs of governors in my own ward. I speak to members of staff who work in schools. And it is just a very high pressured environment at the moment because of the resources that are allocated to schools and the pressures that they face. So just, aside from this being embedded as a CPD element of the schools, what can the council do, really? How are you going to ensure that this is possible for everyone to achieve? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lister. Who'd like to respond? Is it you, Jeanette? Or...
I think it's a really helpful suggestion about recruitment, Councillor Lister, to be fair, and something that I hadn't thought about, but certainly will do now. The reference to early years, we don't have someone from early years on the steering group. We do have, as I say, the person from the parenting group, but Gail Bennett, who sits over sort of, I forget what Gail's title, so early years, isn't it, and parenting. We talked to her about this and she's very keen to develop one as well, as to whether they just adopt this or adapt it. So that's a conversation that we've had previously. So we would be looking to broaden it in terms of that, so it covers that early years coming in. In terms of, gosh, I've gone blank now in terms of what you said. So about resources, wasn't it really? I think, it is how. And I think there are lots of things that are not financially motivated here. It is about attitudes. It is about relationships. You'll know yourself, isn't it? It's about that fresh start every time with a young person. And I think it takes time. And, to be fair, head teachers and senior leaders have to drive that within their school, don't they? It has to be part of their culture. And I think where we've seen really positive responses from the head teachers on the steering group, and there has been, they said, well, we're just doing it now. We're seeing it as being live, and we're referencing it when someone hasn't applied to it. So there are things that don't have cost, but there are things that do. And I think that's going to be a challenge, isn't it? That will be where schools, when they're looking at the breadth of the offer to enable their learners to be part of that's where the challenge will come. I don't know if anyone wants to.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
No, thank you, Councillor Lister. And that was at the heart of our discussions with our head teachers, actually 12 months ago, when we first launched this as a proposal, in a recognition that there wasn't any more money in the system. Because there isn't, is there? We can all be realistic about that. And it was like, well, we could sit here and moan about the lack of resources until the cows come home, but actually that's not going to get us anywhere. So it was like, you can have 5 minutes to whinge about funding, and then actually we need to think about how can we use our resources in a more effective way. And that's where we've made decisions about where we invest, for example, in supporting schools with particular CPD. That's why there has been a significant investment in the trauma-informed training approaches, the offer to schools to support them around the Team Teach, around that de-escalation. So it's about how do we make smarter decisions about where we use the resource that we have. And again, in the conference a month ago, that's why we said, right, what are your priorities? Because where are we going to focus? And it's come through very clearly around the need to focus our resources on how we support parents as their child's first educators, you know, and this issue around managed moves and sort of mid-year transfers. So, you know, we will be looking carefully at the resources we have within the portfolio, and rather than sort of spreading that resource thinly across a number of areas, it's about saying, no, that was the priority, so that's where we're going to focus our resource to then obviously drive that forward. And other things may have to wait, but that's understood as a rationale. So, and of course, we continue to press Welsh Government in terms of the decisions they're making currently around additional funding for pupils, you know, with learning needs. We know that's a very hot topic still at the moment, and we continue to try and drive in further resources into local authorities through our, through our national engagement. So I hope that helps answer that question. Thank you, Councillor Lister.